Nightwing Annual 2025, Issue 1, Dan Waters writing with Francesco Francavilla on the art. And obviously, we're always happy to see Francavilla back. And this is a return to this book for Francavilla because he did those 2 issues, which were very Maggie Sawyer focused, which this also is, interestingly. So this is set on the outside of the tower, which is obviously the current storyline going on. There's references to it. You see it in the background a couple of times, but this is more about Maggie Sawyer's investigation into who the lady from Spheric is. And we get flashbacks and backstory to both who she is and also a bit more understanding of who the Zani is. So while this is the annual, and I appreciate this is a very important part of the ongoing story for Nightwing.
There are big pieces here that kind of tip what's going on with Zani and Olivia. Which I really liked in the meta sense of what Waters is doing here. With where the story goes and how it uses the concept of the carnival and superheroes and what that means in world and even for us. It was really kind of heady in a really good way.
Yeah, I mean, the story starts with a flashback just as long ago, so it's vague on the time period, but you've got what turns out to be Olivia's father is arguing in court or a hearing of some kind for basically comic books, or at least the type of comic books that are existing, to be banned. He holds up a Grey Ghost and Wonder Boy and argues that they're too violent. They always seem to end being trapped. Like the cover of this comic's got a shark and they're dangling from a rope kind of thing. Very pulpy old school stuff, but he's arguing that it's too violent and whatnot, and it's a bad influence on the children. I really appreciate that the coloring for the comic book cover is very different to the regular Francavilla coloring for the rest of the panels here for the flashbacks, which are all basically very muted.
Muted, it's not quite black and white because it's more bluish than black and white, but everything's muted. And just the fact that this is Waters taking on that whole seduction of the innocent. I forget who that doctor was, right? That came up in the 50s talking about that comics are hurting the youth because of these, undertones that are popping up. And here taking it as more of it's a threat because of the ideas they represent and the concept of the death traps. I was like, oh man, we're really going into this spot. This is cool.
So one of the things on the art here as well is that as much as we said it's mostly practically black and white aside from the comic, the exception to that is Olivia, child Olivia herself is in the background of one panel and she's in color, and it's kind of tying her to the book. And it's so even before you know that she cares about the book and that she does read these, which admittedly I think he does mention that he caught his daughter reading them, but you get there's a connection between her and the book and the coloring, which is really cool. And then you get to see some panels from the comic, which is the Wonder Boy dangling above the sharks and all the rest of it. So then we go to present day Bloodhaven now, and we follow Maggie Sawyer, and this is where the real Francavilla coloring comes in, which is the blues, the yellows, the oranges, and the purples. Exactly what you expect. It is absolutely gorgeous. There's a little bit talking about what's going on with the tower. And it kind of prompts Sawyer to go and investigate this Olivia character, especially since Mayor Grayson told her, I think I saw her real face, but I can't really remember. It's almost like she's in a bit of a trance where I vaguely remember seeing something horrific and scary, but I can't really say what it was. So that gets Maggie Sawyer on the case. And she looks into her history.
Who is Olivia Pierce?
And there's no record of her, before a year ago. So it's okay, this is not a real name. Who is this person? And this is where all, and so we kind of cut between her investigation and the other stuff. So there's a present day scene with Olivia and the Zani showing up and talking to her. And so we've already put a connection between them already in the story. But this is a bit more overt where she's I after all I've done, I hope I'd know more about your plans. And he's you serve the Cirque du Sin, not the other way around, remember that. And it leads into more of the flashbacks, and we see young Olivia breaking into a comic book shop to steal the next issue of this Grey Ghost and Wonder Boy. And again, art's gorgeous. There's a phenomenal 2-page spread where the Zani kind of came out of the comic when they first like came to like kind of recruit Olivia. And it's just gorgeous, all these orange and black backgrounds. He's like, he's almost like a genie coming out of a lamp, but it's super freaky.
That's exactly what it felt like, right? It's almost like she's made this wish and he's here to grant her darkest desires, right?
Yeah.
And just the whole thing of her thumbing through the issue, and then using the same font that was in the book, right? Like the irony, the horror, can the Grey Ghost and the Wonder Boy escape? And just the way that it interplays with the real world, with her reading it, and then the Zani showing up like an evil genie. It's some super cool stuff.
Yeah, I really like it. I think this. This is an excellent annual, to be honest. Like, I think the way it progresses the story, especially since the main book, having read the regular issue, part 2 of the current arc, just before I read this, I read that today as well. Is that's doing such a specific thing that's kind of separate from the Zani stuff. It's it's doing this whole Nightmite like weird dimension with the Nightwing Prime and all that, and that stuff's interesting and it's good what it's kind of like going for. But it's so like this was nice because it's like, hey, we get to keep this Zani stuff going like as well while that's going on,
and it makes the Zani seem more scary once we start to get into this. Right, like where the Zani was packing a lot of power when he was able to mess with Nightmite, right? As a 5th dimensional imp and whatever. And here, when you find out, we get into Olivia's backstory with the Zani and what it represents. It's just like, oh, okay, this goes even deeper than I thought.
Yeah. So we go back to Maggie Sawyer. She goes to investigate Arkham Tower to see if there's anyone left of this Cirque du Sin. And there's one guy left, and he's kind of non-responsive until she brings up the name, not just the Olivia name, but it's like, hey, Nightwing suggested her real name, or she may have gone by Columbina at one point. And this is when he wait, remember? And he gets really angry, and we kind of go into his backstory and how that fits into Olivia. So he was the writer of the comics, and he was kidnapped by Olivia and the Zani and the Cirque du Sin, recruited to be a part of their circus, and the reason why is because he was so good at coming up with traps, death traps that he'd put in these comics. And Olivia gets super creepy as well because he, there's a separate flashback that comes, it's just a little bit, a few pages later, where it's before, when he was still a writer, she went to get his autograph at a signing. And she's like, oh, you do all these great traps and all these death things and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, but the heroes always win in the end. They always get out, don't they? That's part of the fun. And she's like, only because you write it that way. They're so close to death. You could let them die. You could and it gets kind of creepy. So we get all this stuff where the Zani is crawling on the ceiling and he looks up and sees it, and basically it's you're being recruited to be part of this and to come up with death traps. And this is where it starts to talk about the Zani's current motivation and the Zani's backstory. She basically says that there's this entity, maybe it's a god, maybe it's a something else,
spirit,
something elemental, but something that's it almost started making me think of not the parliaments and Swamp Thing, not those, but
it's more of the Ram V idea things, like Trinity, which is the idea of creation and destruction, right?
So it's this idea that the Zani basically became into being in caveman times as soon as they started doing drawings to entertain each other on the cave. That was the first form of storytelling, the first form of a circus, effectively. And
he's the spirit of entertainment, but now it seems like the entertainment has gotten darker, right?
Very specifically though, he basically says that the need for what he offered and the need for the thing that he feeds off of went away because all these superheroes started, because the circus expanded into the entire world, and Superman, and they actually point out the very real thing that a lot of superhero outfits are kind of loosely based on like, you know, circus acts, right?
Yeah.
You know, the strongman and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. Which is funny because there's been discourse about the Trunks again with Superman, and I just thought it was funny that it's come out with this here that we're comparing and why it works, you know. And it's what Cornsweat said was it makes kids trust Superman more, and then when hear the whole thing about how these comic books are corrupting the youth or whatever, it's Dan Waters doing that thing where it's just playing all together with real world type things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so we get this idea that, like, I mean, I don't know if revenge, but this idea that these superheroes, like, the circus was this place for people to escape the rest of the world, but superheroes are like, you know, like the circus would be a place to inspire for things to change, but superheroes, as far as the Zani's concerned, are enforcing the status quo. That's how she puts it when she's describing this. You know, these superheroes are anti-change, which I don't think in the strictest term of that definition I would agree with that, but like from their perspective, I get what they're saying. And this idea that they want to like go after the heroes, and they think their chosen one is Robin, because Robin is, you know, basically the real life version of this Wonder Boy, and has ties to the circus, and it is something that's connected to what the Zani's connected to. So there's obviously a reminder here of like, yeah, like this Cirque du Sin attacked Gotham when Robin was young, when Dick was active as Robin, and Batman and Robin defeated them, and we got obviously some glimpses of that in that flashback, you know, several issues ago now. But it's all tying all that together, and that's like sort of like what kind of set the Zani and like Olivia / Columbina down this path of like, this is all about getting to Robin eventually and getting to Dick Grayson as like their new act, if you will.
Yeah, and again, to get back into that kind of Ram V, like the idea of things is that there's no use for the carnival anymore, right? And then when you look at what Robin has become, and that they want to use that whole his tie to the carnival almost to bring that back through him, right? It's really weird because he's not that circus boy anymore. You know, he is, you know, a superhero. He's one of them. So the idea of twisting him, you know, is very, very curious.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because when she's talking about Robin, she's like, oh, it's exciting, isn't it? Robin, the real life Wonder Boy. I feel like I know him already. I've read so many stories. And, you know, the writer's like, it's a fantasy. And the other thing they do here as well is this idea that if you don't do what the Zani wants, like, it's very vague, but she just says he'll take something from you. And at the end of this scene, this flashback, the Zani's just reaching out to his head and he's screaming, and there's like blood dripping out of his head. And the implication to me is that it's taking either a part of his personality or maybe some of his memories, but the idea that you're losing something very vital to you that you can't get back.
Because they have the strongman set that up when he wakes up, right? When they tells him, you know, to shut up or whatever. And he says, I'm the strongman. That's what she tells me. That's what I am. I used to be someone else. I had a name. I had a life. And it's just like, oh, and he's the strongman? What the hell did they do to him? So, you know,
and it seems to be
that up pretty well.
Yeah, and it seems to be true of this writer in Arkham Tower that he doesn't know. You know, they have no idea who he is, like who he used to be. And does he know? I don't know if he does. He might just not know anymore based on what's happened to these other characters. So, yeah, it's that's good stuff. So Maggie Sawyer's investigating. She's got like a bunch of things written down: the Zani, comic books, death traps,
everybody.
Try to put it together.
I forgot that. Yeah, I forgot everybody was the name of the comic book shop, right? So I was like, huh, she's just including all of Bloodhaven now, huh? And then we get to when she goes to the comic book shop. I was like, oh yeah, that was the name of the shop. Yeah.
And then that scene I was talking about earlier where she goes to the signing, this I presume is just before they're going to kidnap him. And this is where she's like, hey, you could you know, kill the heroes if you wanted to. So that's that. So Maggie Sawyer goes to the Everybody Comics shop and talks to the kid that works there. And you know, she's like, hey, do you have anything by this writer? And he's like, oh, that's an old writer. Yeah, maybe there's something in the old bins, and starts looking through the discount pile. So yeah, there's more Zani over over Olivia's shoulder, you know, more creepy stuff.
Soy's art's been really good, but no one has drawn the Zani as ominous and creepy as Francavilla.
Yeah.
Right? It's hitting like the shadows, the white face, the little beady red eyes. Right? It's unnerving.
Yeah, and it's a nice through line as well, where it's the the Maggie Sawyer issues that are getting the Francavilla art. So it feels like there's a nice through line between the ones that so they're just random which ones are getting Francavilla art versus the Sawyer art. So yeah, because that's the other thing here. Zani chastises Olivia, like, you weren't supposed to show anyone your true face. And she says, I just wanted to scare her. I need to know that I could still scare someone, which is creepy in and of itself, honestly. But they start dancing like up in the tower here on Bloodhaven. Because she's like, let me know there's no escape, none at all. Like they're almost getting romantic about the idea of death traps that no one can get out of.
Yeah, he says the whole city's beginning to feel like a death trap, inescapable, endlessly shifting, violent, and cruel. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another flashback to that night, because the flashbacks haven't been in order; they've been kind of jumping around. This next one's after she stole that comic book and she went home. Her dad catches her and is like grabbing her arm and saying, "You're reading this filth behind my back. Why do you defy me?" And the scene ends with her pushing him, and he goes down the stairs and dies. So it's like, okay, so this is her origin, and maybe this is also part of why the Zani was able to latch onto her, and maybe the Zani could even talk to Dick is because there's a tragedy. Him witnessing his parents' death might be a part of why he's susceptible to the Zani reaching out to him in this way.
Right, and then it's almost like she's running off to join the circus, right? So there's that level at play here, and just that page of the dad on the stairs with the wide open eyes and all twisted up from falling down, and with the oranges and the yellows and her running across. It's very, very, very shocking.
Yeah. So it just ends in kind of like, yep, Nightwing's still trapped in that tower. Maggie Sawyer's put some two and two together and is determined to stop it. It's a really good kind of like, hey, like, get excited for all this stuff to pay off, and it's fun because this tower stuff will probably finish, and some of it may be tied to the Zani stuff, but it feels like the big Zani story is going to come after that. But it's been really well seeded and sort of like playing throughout this run so far. It's as far as Nightwing specific villains, this could end up being a favorite. Yeah.
Well, and what happens with Olivia too is I feel like she has more staying power than the Zani, because now I'm starting to feel like they are feeding off one another, right? Like if she's holding the idea of what he is, that's what's giving him form, right? So if and he doesn't necessarily need to be dark, right? The Zani could just be this spirit of entertainment in a way, right? And it's all of who's using that power. He kind of takes on their thing. So if she really has that darkness in her and it's starting to affect him, I would think that would make her a long-staying villain, I feel, for Nightwing.
Well, that's assuming it works that way. I don't think we know that. Like, we don't know that Zani's not inherently evil to begin with.
No, but I'm just, the vibe that I was getting with the whole, the idea, it's not necessarily the idea, it's who's using the idea, right? As like, she wanted this thing to come out from that book. I don't think she was necessarily targeted herself, I mean, so I feel like she's...
I can see the idea of her wanting something and the darkness in her attracting. That's what I was getting at with the whole the gotcha. Killing the dad being like maybe a big part of like why the Zani came to her. But I don't think we can say right now if like she's influencing the Zani or if the Zani's already kind of the spirit of darkness kind of thing.
Thinking like not a twist or whatever, but just the whole concept of the way that they set up the idea of the Zani. And we know that Dan Waters comes from that Ram V. He came up with Ram V, right? He was writing backups and stuff. That it's not the idea that's necessarily wrong or bad. It's how it's being used. So, and I just got that again, that undertone here throughout, because it's just like the concept of the death traps, right? Is that they are meant in the comic books as entertainment, right? We're writing our heroes into the corner, and they're not inherently bad. So when her dad's trying to push them in court, like, this is what's perverting our children, you know, it's all about just not the intent, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's not the idea itself, it's how they're using the idea that's necessarily bad. So, and I feel like here unleashing this thing on the tower is just a piece of that.
Yeah, I just like, I get why you're comparing this, because I even did it myself to like the idea of Ramvi, the idea forming, but I don't think that the Zani has been specifically treated that way throughout the writing. Even in this issue, it feels like more of there's a character, you know, there's more of a something like, I think that even the fact that the Zani was able to talk to Dick when he was a boy on his own suggests something different. Now, that's true. You know, maybe the Zani is tied to Olivia in some way, like especially when we get more of this whole real face thing. Like maybe there's something supernatural going on there. But I think it's. I just wouldn't shoehorn it into what you're saying right now. I don't think we have enough information to shoehorn it in.
And I did space on that where he appeared to Dick as a boy. I thought you were talking about when he came to him on the bike, right? When we got that in a couple issues back.
No. I'm talking about the flashback issue where he, you know, because that was the first time we ever saw this Zani. We were like, what the hell is this idea?
Right. I kind of spaced on that one, and that makes a lot more sense now. Yeah. So, but no, this is the Francavilla art here, just with that pulpiness and the way that it plays with the colors and the expressions.
If the Zani sticks around, like, and so you could maybe the Zani like could come back because maybe it's unkillable. Like you can take Olivia off the board, but can you take the Zani off the board forever? Probably not. It could be it could almost become like Dick's like Pinhead, like, you know, like a Cenobite style villain who's always kind of like there in some form that could come in and influence things, and tied to the circus and that stuff. Like, you know, I think it's interesting that, you know, Taylor gave us Heartless, who was a pretty good villain, and I think that this is a pretty great new villain as well. And I'm saying that for both the Zani and Olivia / Columbina, whatever you want to call her, you know. But no, I think Waters is having a great run here. I'm super into this. Like, I think it's very different from Taylor's run, but I think they're both great, and I think we've been kind of spoiled with two good Nightwing runs back to back here. So yeah, happy days. And yeah, the art's gorgeous. I mean, we talked about it a good bit at the start of this. So, what are you rating the Nightwing annual, Matt?
9.5.
I mean, I at least want to give it a 9. Like, I'm not like thinking you're being absurd. It's just
this was a real good.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. Obviously, the art's gorgeous. I love the backstory stuff. It made the Zani feel more mysterious. It made Olivia feel more creepy as well. It really fleshed her out. So it really accomplished a lot. Yeah, I'll agree. 9.5. I just it's excellent stuff. I feel like there's a certain type of person who'll complain that there's like no Nightwing in it, but that's not really the point. It doesn't matter.
Because it's driving that you feel his presence though, because the whole reason she's doing this is because of Wonder Boy and Robin.
Oh yeah, right? I mean, regardless of any of that though, like it's okay for an issue of a series to like go away from the main character and focus on the villain or whoever. And I think the fact that this is an annual doesn't change that. Like, it's okay for this to focus on like another prominent part of the story. So I just know that there's someone out there who'll whine and say, but like Nightwing was in like one panel at the end. Meh. Like, so I'm just shutting that down immediately.